So this video here will be in the event, and this will be rare. In fact, most of the time, for the entire time that you ever own a DustRam, you will never ever need to pull your hinges off. The only time that you may be forced to do that is if you use a cheap torque wrench and have some issues with the torquing of it and cause some damage to the hinges. But other than that, it's usually not something you have to take apart. But in case you do, I wanted to show a little bit of what it would be like. First, you're going to need a 1/4 inch American Allen wrench to pull out the shoulder bolt, which is right here. When you pull it off, you're going to find a series of brass washers. And depending upon how the hinges were originally fitted, in this particular case, there was actually 3 brass shims on this side here, and then of course the hinge comes off here, and then there was a thick one here. If you pull the shoulder bolt out, you'll also find another brass shim. If you can, it's probably important to remember the order that these go on so your hinge goes on there better. But let's say you've just pulled this off. Now, typically, when these are assembled at the factory, there is a considerable amount of blue Loctite that has been on here. So you'll break it free. But before you fix your hinges and put it all back together, it's probably a good idea to take a 3/8 inch 16 American thread and clean the threads out down inside the hinge mounting area here with a tap, and then with a die clean off the male threads of your shoulder bolt. So that way you can use fresh blue Loctite to put it back on there. So to assemble, you just kind of reverse the process. You would put the shoulder bolt through there. You would grab the next round of washers that came through here, and this one would slide on through here. And you would take the other, and it could be 2, 3 shims. It really depends on how the factory set it up at the when they assembled it. So once it's like that, in order to put this down into here, you will take some blue Loctite and you will put a nice, generous amount of blue Loctite on there. You can see that that's pretty saturated. So if you'll notice, I have this DustRam pointing down this way. We don't want blue Loctite to get on anywhere near these shims. So I'm going to have you come around on this side here with the camera. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my hand like this, and I'm going to insert the Allen wrench here, and while I'm holding my finger with the shims so that the shims don't fall down in there, I'm going to start turning that shoulder bolt just like that. Once I'm able to get part of the threads down in there like that, I don't have to worry about the shims anymore because there's no way they can get out of alignment. So from here, I'll just tighten this down like this. And I'll go ahead and close the clasp. I'll stand it up, and I'll just continue just very gently screwing this down, and in a second it's going to barely touch. And at that point right there, you notice how I didn't even tighten it? That's the position in which you're going to want to let it dry overnight. You will not put it into use at this point. You're not going to torque it down. Usually you're not going to torque it down. It'll just be barely tight, just like that. At that point, just take a 5-gallon bucket and set your DustRam down in there like that, and let this dry overnight, and then you can finish putting the mounting bolt back in along with the E-clip, and you can put it into service. That's basically how it goes together right there. Alright, so this is the day 2. Now we've used the blue Loctite, we've mounted the hinges. Now the final thing is to hook the bolt on and use an E-clip. And by the way, if you happen to lose this or something, you can buy these at Ace Hardware. That's called an E-clip right there. And basically it's designed, you can push it onto the threads and it'll snap into place. Now the key about using this, and make sure of course that you have your brass shim, because you'll want that so the bolt can turn and not grind into the aluminum. But you'll insert the bolt through here like this. And at first instinct, you're thinking, well, I got to put this E-clip right up next to there. If you do that, you will not be able to use your mounting bolt properly. The mounting bolt has to be able to move in there like this in order to start threading down there. So you're going to want to put this about 1/4 of an inch away from that surface. So I'm basically going to take this and just push this on like this, like that, about 1/4 of an inch. And that's how it looks right now. See, now what happens is this gives the wiggle room you need in order to start threading this in here. And of course you're going to tighten this down and torque it to 45 foot-pounds. But when it comes off, now what happens is it allows this thing a chance to move and come off of here without interfering with the E-clip. So that is the proper function of that E-clip right there. You don't want it tight. It has to wiggle. So that's the final lesson on that. This DustRam is now ready to be used on a job site, and it's ready to go.